Welcome back to another episode of Saturday Huddle. Thank you guys for being here. I am here with Maggie Johnson, and I'm super excited to have Maggie on today. Maggie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just enjoying the off season a little bit, getting to go on a few fun podcasts like this one with you. So, yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you. And you've also been traveling. I'm super jealous of the beautiful photos you took in Montana.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a Montana girl now. I just loved it. I loved it so much. So, if there's any, Montana, Idaho, Washington people listening, I love
Yeah,
Oregon as well, obviously. That Pacific Northwest area. I don't know if Montana counts as Pacific Northwest,
it's
but
close though. It's
it's
close.
close
It's
enough.
close to the region. I have never been to Montana despite having family there. So
You
I'm
gotta
super
go.
jealous of the photos that I always see. It looks beautiful. So you're doing like all of the off-season stuff. You're
Yeah.
doing the
There's no
podcast.
time there's no
Yeah,
time to travel during the season because if I am traveling, I'm traveling to a stadium. I'm going to a game somewhere, so I like to get all of my travels out, in that spring and summertime so I can put all my focus into football during the fall.
absolutely. Sounds like dedication. I can respect it. And you are the host or one of the co-hosts of a Missouri podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I am the co-host of Mizzou That's Who. It's on the Casey Sports Network. The Casey Sports Network is the number one Chiefs podcast network. It's obviously based out of Kansas City, but they have podcasts for the University of Missouri, University of Kansas, Kansas State as well. So yeah, they just hit a bunch of those market of college teams, professional teams, and I am blessed to get to be a part of that Missouri podcast, and I will when we start our season, which will be coming this summer, it will be my fifth season. So we're
Amazing.
moving and shaking on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. Well, you do great work. I love your content. Love all the Missouri stuff. I've learned so much about Missouri since being your friend. So thank you as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, like, why would you know anything other than, we're just kind of
I
that
guess. I
team in the
guess.
SEC that people don't know a lot about, but you can learn some stuff.
I know, so informative. So yes, great content, Maggie. And I'm super excited to have you here today to talk about the rise of the college football villain. So this off season, obviously, as we're waiting for games, Saturday Huddle's basically kind of tackling a different theme within college football every single week. And this week is villains. And I'm super excited because I feel like naturally in the conversations you and I participate in as friends and with other people, villains tend to be a pretty common denominator, whether we name it that way or whether we realize it. And I think that sports are better when there are teams and programs and coaches that people just have strong feelings about. And a lot of the times those are negative, strong feelings. So why, like kind of just to kick things off, why do certain programs become villains and why do fans secretly enjoy having villains in college football, in your opinion?
Well, I think envy is probably the main one. I think that you have to have something to shoot for, and it's easy to take those teams at the top and make them out to be, a certain way, and whether that be coaches, which I'm sure we'll talk about, or the fans and the way that they interact with other fans. I just think it's so important to have those teams at the top so you always have that goal of something to reach because everybody wants to be the big dog. Everybody wants to be at the top. And to be honest with you, I'm okay with being the villain if my team's at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some programs and some fans do a really good job at kind of embracing that, right? Because they know that they are hated because there is something that people are wanting or because of greatness or something that they're striving for. So, absolutely. But yeah, we're going to take a look kind of like dominant programs eventually becoming disliked, fans loving underdogs but getting tired of dynasties, coaches and media narratives shaping those perceptions, and then villains driving emotion and engagement in sports. And this is actually like a really timely episode because I was just talking about this in a recent episode that a major storyline going into this upcoming season is obviously LSU and Ole Miss, that game in week 3, and obviously Lane Kiffin himself, which I think we can kind of dub him as one of the, if not the probably biggest college football villain
He's the
right now.
biggest villain right now. 100%. Yeah.
The biggest college football villain. And the fact that he leans into that and really embraces it is kind of what makes it so great and kind of what makes it a continuous storyline. So that's obviously going to be a major game. I feel like everyone's kind of already talking about it, even if they're not an LSU fan and they're not an Ole Miss fan. But that's going to be a major storyline because of like that character that he has kind of leaned into. And now, like with the interviews, I know he's not on social media very much currently, but he is notorious for being on social media and tweeting things. And so that is a great example of kind of like what it is you and I are going to be talking about and kind of like the villains that keep the storylines going and therefore keep the discourse going. Are you excited for that game?
I am excited for that game. Obviously, I have season tickets to our game, so I go to all of the games, but I'm assuming that our game will be an earlier game because we're playing like nobody. So, because wait, is that the 20th? Is
I
that
think that sounds about right timing
yeah.
wise.
Yeah, I think we're playing Troy, so no offense to Troy if there's a Troy listener in here. But that's the creme de la creme of college football that week. So we will find a way to watch it wherever I'm at in Columbia. But it is funny because I do feel like Lane is an interesting he's an interesting character, and he's one of those guys that has went from hated to loved to hated to
Yep.
loved, and to find himself back in that place where he's loved by LSU fans but hated by everybody else. Just an interesting, it's unlike any other type of villainized coach in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. He has gone through the waves. I feel like everyone kind of has a Lane Kiffin story, like something that like either made that person love him or hate him or flip flop again. And then now some people have just gotten to the point where they're like, I don't care what he does, I just hate him regardless. Like it just doesn't matter what he does.
Yeah. Well,
I
for a
just,
while I thought, because we'll talk about my coach a little bit here because he gets in the media, but for a while I was thinking that Lane was, I don't know, getting a lot of less flack, I guess, because he's a good looking guy. Like a lot of other coaches would say
right.
things, but maybe because he was good looking. And then he goes to LSU, and I'm like, okay, maybe not. Maybe that doesn't have much to do with it, and he's just gonna get it anyways. But yeah, the way everything was handled, he's found himself in the role, and it's kind of deserving.
Right, absolutely. And at this point, I think when you made the decision to leave Ole Miss to go to LSU, so another school in your conference, you were basically telling us that you're fine being the villain. Like it is what it is. Because I feel like there were so many narratives around that, like, no, he can't do that. He's a changed man. Of course he can't leave Ole Miss. They're doing
He
so
loves
well.
it. He loves
Yeah,
it there. They're in the playoff. LSU's
exactly.
not in the playoff. It doesn't
Exactly.
matter.
It doesn't.
There's still those teams at the top, at the very top, that coaches are willing to go to, but it has to be the right time. It has to. I think this was the right time because you've seen LSU failing, as opposed to the Kalen DeBoer times where he came in after Nick Saban. I understand why Lane didn't want to leave Ole Miss to go to Alabama after Nick Saban.
That's a tough one. And that's a really good segue, actually, to my next point, which is the dynasty fatigue. So, no offense to our Alabama friends or Alabama fans in general, Alabama tends to be a more hated program because of the success they had. It's something that people strive for, and they have had a historic success where fans get tired of the same teams winning. Alabama's definitely on that list, along with like Georgia, Clemson, Michigan for some people, Ohio State, and whatnot. But dominance kind of creates resentment. And in doing so, it creates villainized programs. So aside from like, I don't even know if you hate Alabama, but in your terms of like, if we had to create like Maggie's list of villainized programs that you don't care for, and maybe is because of their dominance, who would be on your list?
I mean, I think you have to put Alabama there because they've just been that team that's done everything for, the past, I guess we're at almost 20 years now, ever since Saban did get there, I think in 2007. So he has to be on there. I think Oklahoma has to be on there. And I know that they've had some issues, but they're still, I mean, they were the top of the Big 12 for all of those years. They kept my team out of a national championship in 2007. So I think they're there. I think Texas is there. They've had some struggles too, but, they still won a national championship in 2005 and have also, been that team where NIL and recruits and all of that just comes so easily to them. So I think they're up there. But I do think those teams you named, Ohio State, Georgia's a weird one to me Georgia's one of those, like, people don't hate Kirby Smart. For some reason, they don't hate him. And he's up there winning with the best of them. So it's kind of crazy. That's an interesting one for me. I would say they're in that villainized role, but I don't know if Kirby Smart is. But yeah, I think those are probably the main ones. I think Notre Dame will probably always be in that category, even though they also haven't won anything. Like obviously no conference championships, but yeah, they haven't won a national title in a long time. So, but I think you still have to put them up there, especially with everything that went on with the bowl season this past year.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. People love to hate Notre Dame. And I don't I mean, I get some of it. Like absolutely. The entire thing with the bowl season this last season was really annoying and stupid.
I'm so
But
annoyed. I'm like, why do you think because you're Notre Dame that
yeah,
and I know other teams, Kansas State didn't play in a bowl game. I'm pretty sure Iowa State didn't play in a bowl game, but nobody cares if they play in a bowl game. Like,
exactly.
you were a team that barely missed the playoffs and you didn't want to play in a bowl game. So I think that made them a little bit even more hated than they were,
Absolutely.
leading up to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the entitlement. It's like, oh, you're not part of a conference. You're kind of like the only child off on the sidelines, and you didn't get your way, so you're not going to participate. Like those types of
Exactly.
things. Yeah, people love to hate Notre Dame, though. And I'm with you on Georgia. I don't feel like Georgia's very hated, despite having the success that they have had. And they continuously play at a dominant level, and they play well, and they have good seasons. But they definitely don't get as much hate as these other schools get. And I also think media saturation plays a big part in it, right? So it's like, who is the media, really glowing up and who are they talking about? Who are they praising? What are the constant headlines? Because I think that overexposure to so many different media outlets claiming that the same three teams are still the same best three teams gets really exhausting and tiresome to to continuously hear that it kind of leads to this resentment as well. So it's like we see it like every Saturday college game day, they naturally are going to talk about the same thing. Certain teams playing well, strength of schedule, conference dominance, all of these things that I definitely think that constant national coverage can totally lead to some resentment. And it's like the same stories being told. So it's like always, for a long time, it was always Alabama. Alabama was just the best team. It was the team to beat. And it's interesting because now Alabama looks a little different and college football looks a little different. And I think that transition from Saban to DeBoer has created like interesting discourse within their fan base of like, wait, we were like the king for so long. And now we can like easily be dethroned and have been.
I think one of the big things with the media that you kind of said, and I tweeted this yesterday actually. I tweeted, it's funny how everybody is out here talking about SEC spring meetings. And I was like, I don't even know when the spring meetings of these other conferences are. And it's not even me hating on them, but
Yeah.
that is what the media does. Like the media puts so much emphasis on the SEC, and I get it as a fan of an SEC team. I get it. I understand why fans of other conferences like don't like the SEC because I mean, I think was the Big Ten spring meetings last week?
I think so, yeah. You didn't know. But like yeah, it just
No,
wasn't. Yeah.
I mean they just don't post it like whatever his name is. Oh gosh, now I'm gonna blank out on his name. But
But
one of the big media guys, like he posts almost every single quote that Drinkwitz said and every single quote that Kirby Smart said. And obviously a bunch of it's out of context so that you don't actually understand what they're responding to. But for some reason, they're not doing that with these other conferences. And I mean, the Big Ten has been on top for a couple of years now. It's just the media is creating the villains in the way that the media wants to create the villains. They're putting that out there for you to kind of make up your own mind on if you like them or not, but they're not going to let you hear that whole story because they know what's going to get the clicks and what's going to get the engagement. They know what they're doing. So, yeah, I think the media plays a really big role in deciding who the villains are going to be on a week to week basis.
yeah. So like the media for sure. And then like I feel like we kind of saw this like just the overexposure and kind of recycling the same headlines can become really annoying to fans, whether they're a fan of that team or not. So like I know I mentioned Colorado in my last episode, but like, the Deion Sanders' first year as head coach, there were so many different headlines on Colorado and setting expectations, whether those were reasonable expectations or not, and just a lot of chatter around Colorado to where it became very easy for Colorado just to be like, for fans outside of Colorado to kind of get exhausted of these headlines and kind of get tired. Plus, their fans started getting really loud and really chatty. So it was just like a whole mixture of things that kind of just led to Colorado not being very liked, at least from a social media standpoint. So do you think villain status is like earned, or do you think it's created by media and fans?
Well, I think with Dion, it was a little bit of both. I mean, the things that came out of his mouth were silly. I mean, a lot of it was silly. And so I mean, the thing about like, I'm bringing my own Louis Vuitton, when you say things like that, you are going to get that hate from these other programs, especially the programs that you play a
Yeah.
lot. But he is such a big character that he's the media's dream, because I mean, it's a great marriage between the two, because Dion actually says that stuff, and then the media gets to post about it and gets those fans talking about it. So I think it's a little bit of both. I think with people like my head coach with Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri, I think a lot of the times they take what he's saying and they leave out the question that's asked, or they leave out another line so that it looks like he's saying something that he's not saying. Like yesterday he said something um about if the Big Ten doesn't like the rules for the new punt formation, that they should just find a local judge to allow them to do whatever they want to do. And clearly, to Missouri fans, we know that he's making fun of the SEC. He's making fun of Ole Miss for getting a local judge to allow Trinidad Chambliss to play, and making fun of the University of Oklahoma. But other fans don't see that because they didn't see the question, so the Big Ten fans think that he's making fun of
Yeah.
the Big Ten, and it's like, no, he's actually making fun of this. So I think the media likes to put things out there to kind of make these other coaches look a certain way as well.
Well, yeah, because that's such a vital part of college football fandom nowadays are those social media reactions and having those conversations online. It's kind of like what keeps things going during the season and the off season. And it can very easily allow opinions and assumptions to be made from people who don't know that head coach very well, or don't remember or aren't connecting the dots basically with like the Ole Miss story and that background. And it's like very easy to kind of take these headlines and just run with them. Like I remember this happened a few weeks ago when Dan Lanning was on Cameo, and he was on it to raise money because all the money was going to go towards cancer research. But many people jumped on the joke of the fact that like he was on Cameo and was spending his time doing these Cameo videos instead of focusing on football and, obviously needing the money and like all of this stuff, because there's no context there. So
Yeah.
it's like I can understand what the point is, like what the motive is of like not allowing that context to be there, but at the same time, it's very easy to kind of create these assumptions, and these assumptions can lead to certain people or programs being villainized. So yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. And
They shoot for, they want, this is everything that they do isn't for the hardcore fan. It's for the average fan, for the
right,
casual
the
fan. Like
casual.
they want to put that stuff out there for the casual fan who's not going to do the research and not going to know what the backstory is. Like that's their bread and butter. That's who they want to, apply their media, their news sources to.
Exactly. Whereas like you take a look at like Saban at Alabama, I don't necessarily think I think they earned villain status because of greatness. I don't necessarily think it was like a media or fan thing. I think fans got really tired of them winning and constantly being great. So it was like anything if Alabama loses. But really that wasn't necessarily anything generated by what Saban did or any of his actions or words. It was really just because of greatness.
Yeah, I mean, he's the GOAT.
Right.
I think when he retired, I made a tweet about it. I think, multiple other fans that are Alabama fans made tweets about it. I mean, he is like Tom Brady and these guys where it's like, yeah, you don't have to like them because of the greatness or whatever,
Right.
but you kind of have to just respect what they did.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely. And so why do you think like because you're a very good college football fan and I know that can be difficult to measure, but you are a very good college football fan in terms of knowledge and support and not just with your team, but with the landscape of college football. So why do you think underdogs feel easier to root for?
Oh man, I think it is. This is a weird. This as a fan of a team that I would consider an underdog in any big game. This is like a hard place to be in because everybody loves an underdog. If they're the underdog, that's the story, like the storyline, right?
Yeah.
But if you were to look at my team versus like maybe I don't know Iowa State or Kentucky or something like that, if Kentucky were to win, I wouldn't be excited about it because I'd be like, that could have been my team. It's the same way I kind of feel that way about Indiana. Like, Indiana was an underdog, and I guess you kind of want them to beat the other teams in the SEC. At least I do. I'm not an SEC homer, truther. I don't care. Like, they can lose every game. I'm recruiting against them, so they don't help me at all. But they're one of those teams that you want an underdog to win unless you're not the underdog. And I feel Tennessee fans are like that too because I feel like if you have both of us next to each other, we'd both say we want the underdog to win, but I don't want Tennessee to win and they don't want me to win. So, yeah, it's one of those things they are easy to root for as long as it's not really like the big game. Because at the end of the day, maybe I would just rather see Georgia win again because they're already out recruiting me. They're already doing all of these things better. It Now with Indiana, we're just adding another Midwestern team that takes recruits from me that's good. And now they're just another team that can add our recruits or, players from St. Louis or Kansas City that we recruit heavily from. So, yeah, I like the idea of an underdog, but I want my team to be the underdog. And I think a lot of people would agree with that sentiment that if it's not going to be your team as the underdog, then you may as well just have the big dogs keep doing what they're
Right.
doing.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people like the underdog to win because it usually means they're beating a team they want to see lose. So it's not like so much that I want the underdog to win as badly as I want the other team to lose. And so it becomes
Exactly.
very easy for that. Indiana's a really interesting story because it was obviously such a great story. Like what the most losing football program in history.
Ever.
Yep, to have the type of season they did to end a national championship. Obviously, that's great. Cool. Loved the storyline. And many people loved the storyline. I think from like a personal standpoint, being an Oregon fan, and not just because we lost to them twice, but it's like, oh, like you guys already got a national championship after this one season and
Yeah.
every season it's like the same hope that I hold on to that that's finally going to be the year. So it's kind of like a bittersweet thing. Like, oh, that's cool that you beat the teams and we had someone different at the national championship and who won it. Like, that's cool and interesting. But at the same time, you kind of just
You
walked
want
in.
it to be you. You want it to be
Yeah,
you.
right.
I totally get, especially because
Yeah.
you guys have been so close all of those times. I mean, I've watched my team one win away 2007, 2013. So like I
Yeah.
understand too. And then you watch this team come in and obviously they had a good year in 2024.
Yeah.
Indiana did, but not good enough to compete. And then had a team that was just killing everybody in 2025 and you're like, oh, like what did they do so differently that I
Yeah.
cannot do? And
It's like they did it
it's
with
frustrating.
ease, it feels like. And it's like,
Yep.
wait, I've been struggling since I was like 12 years old. What are you talking about? I have I have put my time in as like character building and like doing the good stuff as a college football fan, and my team does not have a national championship yet. What is happening? So that is like it's just bittersweet to me because it's like, yeah, that's great. Good for you. I guess that's fine. But it's cool that we had like someone new win the national championship. But I mean, I think that's a good example of kind of like an exhausting storyline, not just as an Oregon fan. I know other people get tired of it too, of like Oregon just always being so close. Like that's like the continuous storyline of like, yep, another year of Oregon being so close. And so I totally get why my program gets hate from people beyond our rival is because of like a lot that gets thrown in my face is like, yep, you're that team that's like always really good but not good enough, and then you have too many uniforms. That's like the
Do you
two things
do
that get thrown
you
in my face.
the uniforms? Do
Yeah,
you think that Oregon is sorry, I'm flipping this around and asking you a question. Do
that's
you
okay.
think that Oregon is considered a villain or not?
I feel like they're like in that middle part. So it's like we have the clear cut villains at top. And then I feel like Oregon just misses that, in my opinion. If you ask other people, they're like, no, they're a villain. They're hated. Absolutely. I don't know if we've done anything to be truly hated for. I guess you could throw like loudness out there, like, oh, they have loud fans who claim that they're so good, but they've never won a national championship. And then, oh, they think they're so cool with all of their uniform combinations. But like, really, like, I might be biased, but I don't know if Oregon's done that much to be hated beyond like USC fans and Washington fans. So it's like I feel like they have just missed it. Just yeah, they just missed that like that guideline of like being hated, but they're like obnoxious enough to be in that middle part where I can understand why people don't like them, but they're not like universally loved or like people are they're unbothered by others.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's a big brand, but I wouldn't say I don't know anybody at least around here in the Midwest that hates Oregon. Also, Dan Lanning's from Missouri, so I think there's a
Yeah.
little bit of a soft spot in Missouri for Dan Lanning, and a little bit of a jealousy that he isn't or hasn't ever been or isn't a coach at the University of Missouri, but yeah, I agree. It is weird. Oregon is in that weird spot where I feel like it could kind of go either way, and I just think it's because they are good every year, just haven't, sealed the deal. But I think that if if they got to that point where they won, I could see them jumping up into that category quickly.
Yeah, and I honestly that might just be like one national championship.
Yeah,
I'm
I
kind
think
of
it would.
worried how insufferable the fan base would be if they just had simply one national championship. Because then all those jokes kind of they evaporate. Like you can't
Yep.
have that like zero national championships where they use the Oregon O as the zero. Yes, it drives me crazy because we're talking letters versus numbers just from a grammatical standpoint, but a lot of those jokes kind of just go away. But one day, I've been telling myself that since I was 12. One day it'll happen. It'll
You
happen.
and me both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right? One day it'll
We'll,
happen.
we'll see. I did watch my St. Louis Blues win a Stanley Cup, and they didn't have anything. That was 2019, so there you know we just
It
watched
happened.
Indiana do it. It could happen.
Right? And I feel like that's like the measurement now. Oh, if Indiana can do it, we can do it. That story is going to be twisted, and now that's going to be like the measurement of everything is like, well,
Mm-hmm.
Indiana did it. But kind of going back to the amplification of villains, when we think about like coaches, I think some of like just off the top of my head, some of the coaches that come to mind when we think about villainized coaches, obviously Lane Kiffin, Deion Sanders, we talked about. Historically, I feel like Urban Meyer would be up there. And then I feel like Dabo Sweeney also gets villainized, probably because of his views on NIL and like the transfer portal. But for a short while there, Clemson was dominant and they were winning. So I think that kind of like was enough to form that like villain character, or at least have those characteristics. But what do you think goes into a coach for them to be villainized in terms of like confidence or in terms of how they engage with media, their swagger, those types of things?
I mean, I think the biggest one is winning. Like
Yeah.
if you're winning at a school that especially a school that historically wins, I would say like that's the biggest one. So yeah, that's where you would bring in like the Dabo type, and but then you go to the media where he has clearly made it known that he doesn't like NIL and he doesn't like the transfer portal, and like we're at a time where you kind of have to, like you don't really have a choice if you want to win games, and what's happened since then they haven't won that many games. So yeah, I think the winning is a big thing. That media is a huge thing. And again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but a lot of it has to do with the out of context comments.
Yeah.
The that what people don't really know what you're talking about and just hear what you're talking about in terms of maybe the playoff and how many teams you think should be in the playoff, or the conference realignment and things like that. I think people are very easy to kind of jump on to these coaches for the comments that they're making whenever everything that they're saying is right. You just need to hear the question, and you need to, actually listen to these professionals who are talking about their experience. So I think the media definitely plays a big role in that. I think off-field decisions can play a role.
Yeah.
Things like Georgia players not getting that in that much trouble for the things that they're doing and the changes not being made in the locker room there. I think that can play a role in the way that these coaches are seen as villains. And then obviously, again, off field, but the way that coaches are moving from team to team,
Totally.
which, we look at players and the transfer portal, and we allow this, and it's like, why players should be able to do whatever coaches are doing, and if they're so freely allowed to move, then players should so freely be allowed to move. So yeah, I think that that's maybe one of the biggest ones, especially. I mean, that is what happened with Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin was loved at Ole Miss, loved by, I would say, most fans in the country. I think a lot of people
Yeah,
had
he
a
kind of
soft
like
spot.
redeemed himself at Ole Miss.
He
Like a
redeemed
lot of
himself
people
at Ole
came
Miss
back.
after, because they had the Tennessee thing, and then he got fired, on the tarmac or whatever at USC. But the Lane Kiffin situation reminds me of the Harvey Dent quote, where it's either you live or you die as the hero, or you live long enough to become the villain. And that's exactly what has happened to Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. And that's partly like of him just embracing it, you know?
He
And I
loves
do
it.
think decisions by coaches are definitely treated differently than like players transferring however many times that they transfer. Because it's interesting as fans, we view that as like, oh, they had a better opportunity. So yeah, they're college kids, they should go do that. But for some, like the coach becomes a part of a team's identity quicker than a player does. And so I think when fans, especially fans who really hold their team close to their identity and feel really emotional about it, they take their coach's decisions kind of as part of that overall identity. So it's like, wait, how could he leave? That's like so rude and mean, and we were so great, like we were so happy.
I
thought
thought
we
you
were
loved
happy.
us. Yeah,
I
it
know,
was a
I
great.
thought we were family. You
Yeah.
said we were family. I thought we had this, like we were good. And then they leave, forgetting that it's still a business. Like college football is still a business in that regard. And like I look at the two times Oregon lost their coach to other programs, with Willie Taggart going to Florida State and then obviously Cristobal going to Miami. It's like those were unmatched situations. Like the timing lined up, maybe not so much for Taggart, but the opening was there. The timing lined up, and there was elements to those programs that no other program was ever going to be able to match in terms of like, it's my dream school, or this is where I played. This is where my own personal identity is like woven into, is this particular school. And so, yeah, sometimes they make those decisions because of their own trajectory and their own identity that is separate from fans, and that can lead to fans villainizing that person even more.
One of the interesting things you have to look at too when it comes to that is, it sucks when it's your team, but man, how
Oh,
much did you
man.
love though when DeBoer left Washington? So it's
I
like one of those things. It's like he can be a villain to Washington, but I mean he's probably not a villain to you.
No, I have no hard feelings there at all. It was amazing, Maggie. I can't describe the euphoric feeling of watching them lose a national championship and then lose their head coach. Oh my gosh, top 10 moment of being a college football fan. Just because as a rival, and I take that seriously, like as a rival, it's amazing watching other people lose their head coach in such a fashion, especially when you don't like that team. Because yeah, it absolutely sucked. And it definitely became a thing of like, oh, Stepping Stone University. That was like Oregon for a few years. Stepping Stone U, because coaches move on to better things. And then it starts happening to all those schools that talked that trash, and things got quiet real quick. But again, it's just a business. Like he saw an opportunity. I personally would not want to follow Saban, but more power to him, and took it. And at the end of the day, it's just about kind of leveraging what program elevates a coach even more.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think there's only a few programs at the top that you wouldn't ever leave for, and that's why Saban, was there
Yeah.
so long.
Yeah.
Obviously, LSU had some firings, but I think that that's probably another one,
Yeah.
unless you're going to Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State, maybe. I mean, it depends on how good your team has been and the athletic director and things. I know that was a nightmare at LSU for a while, and the governor or the mayor or something was involved. I think a lot of that plays in. I think all these coaches want to go where they are the big dog. And that's one thing. Eli Drinkwitz, our head coach, was a big name in all of these college football searches. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I heard he was interviewing at Florida. I heard he was interviewing at LSU and Penn State and all of these things. But like, he is the big dog at the University of Missouri. He is the one that the athletic director is there, but
Yeah.
he's the athletic director of, in if you in terms of getting whatever he wants and being able to allocate the resources where he wants. So yeah, I you don't blame these coaches for leaving, but you don't blame fans, or on both sides, your fans or other fans, for looking at them in a different way and potentially them becoming that villain.
Exactly. And then we have like all the different symbols, right? So we often like I feel like the SEC is probably pretty well villainized by people outside of the SEC. And it's like they name it like, the SEC arrogance or the entitlement. Like they think they're the golden child, like all of these different narratives, all these different stories that we hear. Some of them are rightfully earned, like they can be viewed as the golden child given the success that they historically have had in numerous sports. And then like we think Hollywood programs, like USC, it would be like a Hollywood program. Nike schools, that's another one that's often thrown with
Notre Dame.
Exactly. So it's like we have like all of these symbols that kind of contribute to that overall villainizing of programs or people within those programs. Because even if these programs have success, it's like, oh, well, that's a Nike school. You have all the money in the world that you want. Or, yeah, a bunch of SEC teams are ranked right now. It's that SEC entitlement or that SEC arrogance that I think these separate storylines that are symbols to some programs or symbols to at least the fans contribute to that, to programs being villainized.
Yeah. And I think that ties into a lot of the coattail writing in like a negative way, because being one of the programs that isn't like a top tier program in the SEC, we're looked at as kind of the coattail writers, or but that's because the only thing that you see in that media or you see on TV are these big time programs. So whenever you think about, those middle of the road SEC programs, I guess I would put, for the past 10, 15, whatever years, it was Ole Miss. Ole Miss has never really been what they were, I guess, under Lane Kiffin. But like you look at my school, who has finished, 2024, 2023 and 2024 had 10-win seasons. But you look at it as these other fan bases see us as like a bottom tier school. They see us as, finishing in the bottom of the SEC, which isn't the case. But the media has played into these big personality roles, and we're not one of them. So we're kind of riding these negative coattails with these bigger programs, but we really haven't been a part of it.
That's a really interesting point because that is probably pretty unique to Missouri and schools like Missouri, where you've had pretty good seasons, like you just said, 10 plus win seasons, but that's not what people are talking about. I feel like continuously Missouri kind of gets dragged in the mud for not being in Alabama or Georgia or most recently in Ole Miss. And that doesn't necessarily speak to the success that you guys have had. Like the way that Missouri can be portrayed would make it seem like they win 3 games max.
Yeah. You would think we were Mississippi State, no offense to Lounge. Mississippi State, you would think Arkansas. But, I mean, we've lost to Arkansas twice since we've been in the league. I mean, we've dominated teams like South Carolina. We're even with Tennessee. We're even with Florida. Yeah, we haven't beat Alabama. We haven't beat Georgia in a while. But also, like, we're talking about the top programs in the country. So, yeah, recruiting-wise, we're not there yet. But, yeah, you look at those things and it almost seems unfair that you're looked at in this way where you're not reaping any of the benefits for really being that way.
Right. And you guys are obviously clearly good enough if your coach is interviewing at all of these other big time schools.
Right. And turns them down, might I say. But
right.
People don't want to have that conversation yet. So
that's not how things are twisted in terms, or that's not how things are perceived, I should say, in terms of like the general narratives. So that is interesting that like the negative coattails, kind of like what you were saying. Because I think villains are created by success and personality, and there's like a ripple effect to it as well. So obviously with the SEC, the success that other teams have had kind of pushes Missouri's success into the shadows, but while also creating an unfair narrative about Missouri.
Yeah, well, because people will be like, oh, Missouri and Tennessee are ranked 20th through 25th again. And I'm like, well, yeah, like we have 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
why would we not be? And also, it might one day, but at this current moment, that doesn't matter. Like those rankings, if you're not inside those the top 12 or even 11, I guess, it doesn't even matter. So people get upset about those things, and yeah, that just all plays into the villainization of the SEC, and where they don't think that people belong even though they probably do. But that just doesn't mean other teams also aren't worthy. Just that area of those later rankings never really mean anything to me. So
Yeah. No, and that's absolutely understandable. And it's interesting because all of this is amplified because of like social media, right? Because like even though there were sports villains prior to social media and fans engaging on there, social media has kind of made it impossible to escape all of that. So it's like we can very quickly, I still feel like there's people on my timeline consistently enough talking about like Urban Meyer and like his legacy and kind of like, the poor decisions he made or the type of person he is and kind of all of these different things that contribute to him being a villain. And he hasn't coached for Ohio State in a while. Like it's been several years, obviously. So it's also interesting, kind of with that, it's interesting how quickly a fan base will paint their coach as a villain when they lose to their rival. Not to bring this up, but like, Ohio State, the year they won the national championship, so 2024, they lost to Michigan. And there's still like Ohio State fans talking about that season, about how it's just kind of, it was a fine season. I'm like, what a national
yeah,
championship. Like there's
yeah.
so
How privileged must you be? How
right,
privileged must you be?
privileged. Like there's many teams that would be willing to lose to their rival that year in exchange for a national championship. But yeah, right? But like the fans can just turn on you so quick and paint you as the villain. Like I can't believe after all of this success you've brought us and all of these trophies or all of these conference championships that you lost to our rival or you missed out on that recruit or you're not making the quarterback decisions that I think you should be making. So it's like I don't think it's very hard for a person to get to that point of villain. It's just like how deep into that villainry are they going to get with between media fans and like other college football fans.
Ryan Day he's an interesting case in the villainization thing
Yeah.
because I would consider Ohio State a college football villain. I mean, they're, up at the top with those other teams, have won multiple national championships, have won a recent national championship. He's definitely looked at as a villain head coach, but I don't know if it's as much from outsiders as it is insiders. Like
Yeah. Right.
I do think a lot because it did take him like a few years to kind of be in that national championship and eventually got it, but I do think a lot of their fans were ready to cut him loose, and I think a lot of their fans would still be willing to cut him loose. And like you said, some of that has to do with the big games that they're losing, like those games that they lost to Michigan, and they lost quite a few in a row, I believe. And then, losing to Indiana. Fan bases help create, especially on social media, help create the villain persona. Like these fans, that's why I see like Tennessee as a villain because it's their fans. It's not so much where their program's at. I mean, their program has been in the past. It's been, a while. But
Yeah.
they have been that. I think the fans on social media definitely play a role in creating that villainization of themselves. I think a lot of them like being the villain,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's not even the coach's fault. I think a lot of the time it is the fans' fault.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fans can totally contribute to that discourse. I think it's kind of what makes college football entertaining. I don't know
Hmm.
how we would be as like a college football culture if we didn't have villains. Like it's a really integral and important part to like the conversations we engage in, the storylines that can be created, the interest that that some games kind of create. Like if we take a look at the LSU and Ole Miss game in week 3. If this was happening, like Lane Kiffin moving or leaving Ole Miss for LSU, if all of this happened prior to social media existing, yeah, it might get some hype and people in their own friend circles and within their families would probably be talking about it. There would be some news articles on it, but like it is magnified so much because it is something on social media that can be continuously recycled and talked about, where we can analyze a point, like a different point every single week, like in terms of the atmosphere, the attendance, the stadium they're playing in, players available, quarterback situation, and that's all before we get to the actual coaching. And so it's like social media, yeah, they absolutely amplifies like these storylines because what else are we going to do, especially in the off season? It's like we're grasping at straws here in terms of like anything that can keep us remotely close to college football, which kind of I think also magnifies these villains even more.
Well, I mean, you look again at the Lane Kiffin situation. I'm like, we knew way too much about his dog, or maybe not his dog. I don't know. I
I don't
still
know.
am not 100% positive.
Yeah, I don't
We
even
know we knew
know.
about his yoga studio. Oh
Yeah,
my! And
yeah,
then now, he's coming out with all of those comments that's like, it was hard for me to recruit. It was hard for me to recruit at Ole Miss because of the ties to the Deep South. And I'm like, these things weren't ever said, or maybe they were said, but they weren't reshared, requoted, quote tweeted, commented on, shared again by every single news source that you could possibly find. You didn't ever see that before. So now it definitely amplifies it. It makes it so even the lowest of the low, most casual fan that maybe watches a game a season knows what's going on. Or my family are not LSU or Ole Miss fans or Missouri fans, but they know everything that's going on. So yeah, that media definitely, they love to play that role. They love to make it so you have every little smidge of information about somebody and you know exactly how he feels. Exactly, I'm using air quotes because you
right.
you don't know everything that he's saying, or maybe he's not saying it the way, but they want it to come out the exact way that he said it.
Yeah, exactly. And college football is such an emotionally driven sport. I think most sports are, but college football can take it up a level in terms of just utter chaos and everything that happens on the internet versus real life. And, villains help create that emotion. It's like, oh, we want to see, like, some people might want to see Lane Kiffin fail at LSU because they have him painted as the college football villain right now. And it would be hilarious if he failed because what was all of this for anyway, you know?
And
And
LSU fans are already, I would say that they are like a villainized fan base.
fan
Like
base,
it's
yeah,
a villainized school, just because they've had so much success and one of the best college
right.
football teams of all time. It wasn't
Yep.
that long ago, which is kind
Yeah.
of crazy. It's like 7 years ago now, but it's still them. So yeah, they're already up there. And then they bring Lane Kiffin on, and it's just, I think everybody wants to see LSU lose.
Right. Yeah. And it's just because it's such an emotionally charged sport, it's like very easy to latch on to these headlines and things that are happening that sometimes have nothing to do even with our program. Like we're talking like different conferences here, different teams, like things that are not remotely related to a person's college football fandom, yet they find themselves emotionally invested in the outcome of certain situations. I mean, going back to DeBoer, like that again, not my program, my rival, sure, but like the emotional satisfaction I got out of that absolutely shows kind of how emotionally driven this sport is. It's like, oh, your downfall is beneficial to me. And I think that can be toxic. I understand why people say college football is toxic, but at the same time, like that's kind of why we love it. We need like these storylines and these emotions to like keep generating because it's like fuel to the fire for us. It basically keeps us going.
But yeah, college football's a giant red flag, and you can't, you just have to, you keep going back to it because
Yeah.
you the highs that it brings you are so much better than the lows, and the lows are bad,
Oh,
but
those can be awful.
you're willing to live with the lows if you can experience the highs, even if the highs are maybe once every 10 years you
Yeah.
experience happiness.
Oh,
Which is
right. I
kind of
mean,
what happens with my program, but it's like worth it.
it's no different. Like, I feel like something people consistently say online is like, oh, that moment happened before you were born. Okay, it was still a high that I'm bringing up now because it's relevant. Like, or I think it's relevant. Like, I see those debates all the time on social media. Like, remember when Reggie Bush did this? And then there's all these people who are like, Reggie Bush has been retired for years, man, like professionally retired for years. But, we still think about the golden parts of our program's history, and we need those. And I also think what's really interesting with college football, and again, all sports, is like how even if we're doing bad, like a person's team's doing bad, if other people are also sucking, especially if our rivals doing worse, that feels like a high still. And so
It's
it's
still a
like,
win.
oh, yeah, it's a win. Even though my team's not winning, you're losing more than I'm losing. So that's a win. And again, major red flag, super toxic. I'm not saying any of this is healthy, but it's just like the nature of the sport that like keeps pulling you back in.
Yeah, you want your team to be the best. It can't always happen. So watching your rival be good is one of the worst things that you could possibly have. But luckily, my rival is the University of Kansas, so I don't really have to experience that much in football. Basketball, on the other hand, it sucks. But
Yeah. That's rough. Basketball is rough, but at least you get some reprieve in football. At least you have recently, for sure. So, kind of do some just final questions for you for me to pick your brain a little bit more. Outside of LSU, going into this next season, who do you think is college football's biggest villain right now, besides LSU? Since we already kind of touched on that.
um, I would say Notre Dame's got to be up there because of everything, the way that the season ended, and also, all of these like rumors that you've heard about if the college football playoff expands, like do
Yes.
they get like an automatic spot in if they're in this top whatever number? And then I just think that, you know, join a conference. Like we're going through all of this stuff with conferences and conference realignment and you won't join a conference. So I definitely think that they're up there. I would like to say Indiana just because of how their fans have, kind of reacted, but I would be reacting the exact same way. So I don't really feel
Oh,
like I
right.
can. I
Yeah.
mean, some of them are unhinged, don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
don't think I can really even say them. So yeah, I would say those teams. Um, who else? I think Texas A&M is climbing the ladder. Oh, Texas too, because we're like, can Arch just leave? I'm so tired of Arch fanning already.
That's
I mean,
kind of an exhausting storyline, right? Is the
an
art.
exhausting storyline.
Yeah.
Like he's been fine, he's been decent, but I'm just over it. I'm so over that one. So I think that they're big up there because they always have high preseason expectations as well. So I would say that those are pretty, big villains right now.
Yeah,
I
no, those are good ones. I totally agree.
I was
I
trying to
think
think if I
maybe,
thought of if there was a Big Ten one that I thought was a supervillain. I don't know because of all that stuff that went on in the off season with Michigan. I think Michigan and Ohio State are always up there, but I don't know if people are looking at them as villains right now.
right, totally. I mean, no, I mean, this isn't a bad thing, but LSU's in the top spot. No offense to
Easily.
anybody who might take offense to that, but they're in the top spot. So it should be an interesting season. I'm super excited. How are you feeling about Missouri?
I'm a little bit nervous. Obviously, we had that injury to Ahmad Hardy a couple of weeks ago, which was so sad, and praying for a good recovery for him. But it's hard. We call this thing getting Mizzou'd, and it's when things are looking so good, and then something absolutely insane happens that would does not happen to other programs, and that happened with Ahmad Hardy. I do really like our backup running back. He was equivalent to Jodarian Price last year with his numbers. So he's a very, very solid running back. He's from St. Louis. I think it's all just going to, depend on how Austin Simmons from Ole Miss does and how we can replace that defensive line because we had a really good defensive line last year. Really put pressure on a lot of quarterbacks. So it'll be interesting to see those two. Those two areas are my question mark right now. But hoping for the best.
I always like keeping my eye on Missouri, not because I'm your friend, but because I feel like you guys always play teams very close, like teams where you're the underdog. And I just love those games. You guys put on really good games against good teams because you are a good team. And so I always like paying attention to Missouri and kind of keeping my eye because I think maybe the day will come where you guys kind of being, not talked about enough in the SEC will be to your benefit. Maybe you'll have like an Indiana year, where it's just kind of like out of nowhere, like, oh, that's right, they are part of the SEC. And
Yeah.
so I see a benefit there.
Well, in 2023, like it was kind of similar to that. We ended up losing at home to LSU, which that game didn't really matter that much. But the game that really mattered was on the road at Georgia, and we were less than 5 minutes left. We're driving to score and go up, and Brady Cook throws an interception to a defensive
Yeah.
lineman, and
Yeah.
and you win that year in the SEC championship game. You're potentially in that playoff spot. And then we end up beating Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl instead, which was great. What people will say what they want to say about that game. But we ended up, I think, ranked 8th in the country. And if it was a 12-team playoff,
You'd
a
be
year
in.
earlier, we're in the playoff. So people
Exactly.
don't look at it like that. They're just like, you've never been in the playoff. And I'm like, that's another like getting Mizzou thing with the timing just being off 1 year,
Right.
something like that. So yeah,
Right.
I would like us to be in that continuous hunt at least every couple of years, but you never know how things are going to keep changing and how different this new playoff system is going to be and all of that. So, and
Yeah.
also in terms of the playoff system, just like really briefly, how many teams do you think the play should be in the playoff?
I mean, I don't think more than 12. I would have been fine with 8, honestly. The fact that we jumped from 4 to 12 seems dramatic, just like the way we're going to probably jump from 12 to 24 seems unnecessarily dramatic. Like,
And doesn't make sense.
it makes
It
no
doesn't. It
sense.
doesn't make sense because first off, those teams aren't gonna compete that
No.
are back there. But for me, I'm like, it should be 8 or 16. I think the
Yeah.
bias silly.
Yeah. Right.
I don't think there needs to be a bye at
Well,
all.
I totally screwed Oregon that first year. So I was super excited last year when we weren't as highly seeded, and then it didn't
Hmm.
matter because Indiana took over. But at the same time, like I just didn't like the buy. I don't like the buys at all. I feel like they're unnecessary. I understand what you're trying to get at with them, but please know, I feel like it does my team personally more harm than good, along with a lot of other teams. And I just don't think that there's like 24 worthy teams of being in a playoff every single year. That seems totally unnecessary. Like it's giving like very attention seeking, and the attention's already on you, boo. We don't need that, okay? Like we do
Red
not.
flag again. Red
Yeah,
flag.
again, red flag, absolutely. So it's like, no, I don't like anything about this.
Yeah. If we can get rid of the buys, I'm fine if we were to go to 16, that would put more games on college campuses and get rid of buys. I
Yep,
would be fine with that.
totally.
But 24 and just keeping buys, I'm just like, what are we doing here?
Unnecessary. I don't understand the
Unnecessary.
thought process here at all.
No.
And then I have to remind myself, like, okay, well, they're thinking about money, and I'm thinking about football. So
Yeah. That's
that's
where
red
fans
flag.
in the NCAA and all of that differ.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, tell us where we can find your podcast, Maddie. Maggie, sorry. I said
No,
Maddie.
oh, you're fine.
Maggie.
You can
I
find
will
our
be
podcast.
editing that out. So let's just start up. Tell us where we can find your podcast, Maggie.
You can find my podcast anywhere you get your podcast. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We're on all of those. We also have an app. The KC Sports Network has an app if you like the Chiefs or the Royals or any other of these fan bases. Mizzou, Kansas, K State, Sporting KC. You can download the app. You can find all the podcasts that you could dream of. And then we're always kind of sharing our clips also on Twitter. So you can follow me at Maggie L Johnson, or you can follow at KCSN Mizzou, and you'll get all of.
Yes, absolutely. Following you is a must. Highly recommend. Absolutely great content. But thank you so much for joining me today on this episode. You've been great. This has been so much fun, and I'm super excited for the college football season.
Yay, I'm so excited for your new show, and I can't wait to listen to it every week. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Maggie.